Alrighty, folks, let's get into this. Welcome back to the Midst of Range, where we cover the biggest NBA headlines roughly 12 hours after everyone else. So, big news broke last night, but everyone in this house was asleep except me, and we got thin walls here, so I wasn't going to wake everyone up recording about it, so I apologize, but you're getting this now. There was a big trade that happened. Mikal Bridges is going to the New York Knicks in exchange for a whole boatload of picks. 4 unprotected first round picks, 1 top 4 protected pick, a second round pick, and an unprotected pick swap, and Bojan Bogdanovic. That's quite the haul, quite the haul. The talks I've seen on Twitter is that the Knicks overpaid, which I'm actually going to push back against a little bit. I think that the Knicks were already one of the best teams, especially in the East. I think they were one of the only teams that could really give Boston a run for their money at defending the Eastern Conference. They were probably already number 2, maybe number 3, depending on how Milwaukee turns out, in my opinion, for Eastern Conference power rankings going into next season. And the addition of Mikal Bridges boosts them up firmly to number 2, in my opinion. I think in today's day and age, you really have to capitalize on your championship window when you can. And I think that's exactly what New York is doing here. It might have been a bit of a steep price to pay, but, I'm a fan of the team that made the Rudy Gobert trade, and I've defended that trade since the day it went down. People were calling that the worst trade in NBA history, but look at us. We made it to the Western Conference Finals this year, and it kind of looks like we're only going up from here. So they might have kind of mortgaged their future here, but I think that ultimately that's just the price you pay to be a contending team in today's NBA. I think this is kind of a win-win for both teams, actually, when you look at it, because look at the haul the Nets got. Talk about flipping an asset for as much value as possible. A year ago when Kevin Durant asked out and they got Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and like a couple of picks, it was a good value, but, not what you were expecting for a guy like Kevin Durant. And I think the fact that they were able to flip around Mikal Bridges for more value than they actually got Kevin Durant for is, first of all, kind of funny, but also just really impressive on the front office's part, in my personal opinion. They still retain the rest of the assets from that trade, along with all the assets they got from this trade now. And I think that they are doing a good job entering a rebuilding phase, because before they were kind of in the same land as the Chicago Bulls, where they were just going to be like stuck in the middle of the league. They weren't going to get good draft picks or make it into the playoffs, really. And so being able to kind of pick a side on, are you going to contend or rebuild, kind of looking at their roster and realizing, I don't think we can contend. We should sell our best assets and just do our best job rebuilding. Especially because, I'm not a big draft guy. You could probably tell from this channel. The draft is coming up later this week, and I haven't even talked about it. But as far as I understand, this year's draft class is a little bit weaker than most years, and next year's is supposed to be pretty solid. And the Nets got their own picks back for next year's draft, which is huge. It means that they can tank this next season in order to get good draft picks for an intriguing draft class coming up next season. I do want to point out, too, that Mikal Bridges going to New York just fits on multiple levels. First of all, obviously, he's like the 4th Villanova guy there. He's joining Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, 4 Villanova boys. I think that, those 3 guys already play super well together, so I'm sure that he'll fit in just fine. Plus, Mikal Bridges is the type of guy that fits in really well on any team with, a 3-and-D type player. I know people were getting really excited that he was kind of like the main guy in Brooklyn, and they thought maybe he would take a leap. But I personally find his role to be more valuable, actually, when he's doing more of what he did in Phoenix, where he's not the primary creator or scorer or like clear best player, and instead he can just focus on his defense and, he's still a bucket, but the other team's defense isn't going to have the personnel to be able to focus on Mikal Bridges when they have to worry about Brunson and DiVincenzo and Julius Randle, which, by the way, I don't really know what's going on with him anymore. If I had to guess right now, Dante DiVincenzo probably goes to the Knicks bench, but if I were the Knicks, I might think about trading Julius Randle, see what you can get, because honestly, the team functioned a lot better without him in the playoffs. I'm a bit of a Julius Randle hater, but I still think he can provide value to a different team. I just don't really think he fits well with this Knicks team. I think that if they were to run out a lineup with Brunson, DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges, they could space the floor so well and play great defense and keep a quick tempo that Julius Randle just doesn't fit into any of that. He is a very ball-dominant player. He has to have the ball in his hands. He can't shoot threes particularly well. He's a bit of a slower player, a bigger player, so it just doesn't really fit the scheme they're going for. The other reason Mikal Bridges really fits well into this team is because he is, you want to talk about Tom Thibodeau, he is the quintessential Tibbs guy. He hasn't missed an NBA game since he came into the league. I'm kind of interested to see how far Tibbs is going to take this, if he is just going to run him into the ground and get him injured. But, by all accounts, it doesn't really seem like Mikal Bridges is capable of getting injured, at least so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play 44 minutes a game in the regular season for the Knicks. I also forgot to mention that the Nets also made some trade swapping some picks with Houston. I don't really care enough about that to get into the specifics of it, but just all around good job rebuilding for them on that front. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I think both teams kind of came out winners here. I know that might be a bit of a hot take. I guess we'll just have to see, how this works for the Knicks and what happens with Julius Randle. But until then, I'm going to call this a win on both sides.